Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. In this training movie, I'm going to talk about how to change the asset reference, or in other words, point a record to another file, and also how to move a file that is on disk in the network to the vault. Imagine the following scenario. I have a couple of files which are in a particular folder, like layout folder, and this is, for instance, the low resolution file, and you want to assign the same file but in a different folder with the same name. Well, then I have in the catalog prepared three records. One record, I forgot to assign them. Sorry, let's quickly assign them to a test category so my workflow can find them. So these three records, the first one, and let's make this a little bit smaller so we can read the name. So this one is a normal test smiley, which is in the layout folder and which should find a test smiley file in one level above without the layout part in the folder. This one is in the layout folder but doesn't have a high res. The procedure is that it would still move that to the vault, but just not find a high-res version. And this one is not in layout folder and will be moved to the vault. So here it goes. Start. So if we look at the first one, we say test smiley. It sets a nodes value before, so the asset reference before was this. Then it has found the high res here, and so it has found one without the layout and assigned it to the record, and then it has moved it to the vault, and here you can see the vault asset reference, and here you can also see that it is in the vault. This was a file that was in the layout folder, but it didn't find a high-res file, so it uses the same file to move to the vault, and then finally the file is moved to the vault. And this is a scenario where this is a test file that is not in a layout folder, so it is just using that file, assuming it's the high-res, to move it to the vault. So let's have a closer look in the workflow, how the workflow is making this happen. So first of all, it's a hot collection workflow. So the first thing is it will perform a query. As I said, I prepared three records assigned to a category called test Alex. So that way it was only finding those three records to process. But you could just leave the query empty. It would do all the records, or you could just do it partially in groups or whatever query you want to specify. Then you can specify a part in the path of the file that you want to remove, to find the high resolution, the alternate version, the other version. Here I'm defining that /layout/, and it should be replaced by a /. And so if this is on a Linux path or whatever, then it should be /, and so that's how I remove it. Then before it processes, you can store some field values. I just specified here one, but if you want multiple field values, all you need to do is specify a tab and then say, for instance, the status field. And then it will set the status field as well. Same for the value. All you need to do here in that case is after here also do the #tab# and set the status, like approved or whatever values. And you can set as many fields as you like. So before it does anything, you can maybe register where the file was stored and put it in a certain field. Like I do in the example, I'm putting it in the notes field and adding a tag before. Then after it has done processing, you can set different field values, a whole bunch of just one. I'm prefixing the notes field with a plus sign, which automatically tells Roboflow that it should not overwrite the value of the notes field, but just append. And in my appending, I'm appending a record field of the current asset reference, but I'm also appending an internal variable in which, while doing the process, I stored the path of the file so that you could use that afterwards as well. And so that's how you can do it. As I said, also here you can add multiple fields by separating it by the hash tab hash, like I showed here. And then you would have to do this here as well, add the hash tab hash and add as many fields as you like. Please check that the asset handling set that you use has the vault enabled, because this asset handling set is moved to move the file to the vault. It doesn't need to have the setting that it has to, while cataloging, move the asset to the central asset location. That is not a functionality or that is used because we're not cataloging the file. We're just asking the record to move its asset to the vault. And so don't be confused. It needs to have the asset store vault enabled. It doesn't need to have the move to central asset location option enabled. Then if we have a closer look at how I do this, so first of all, I'm testing if this asset has actually a file as an asset. So is this record vaulted or not? So if it's vaulted, then I'm saying, hey, sorry, but record skipped, asset is not available as a file. That means maybe you already ran the procedure on it, maybe this file was already vaulted, maybe this asset is just not available, so it's just writing that into the log file. Then store file from record. I want to get to the file, so then I'm testing if the file exists, just to be sure that I'm not running into any issues. If the file is not available, then it will say record skipped, the file of the record is missing. Then if the file is available, which it will probably be, I'm storing a part of the file. Well, actually I'm storing the file path, the complete file path. And then I'm storing the record field to set before doing anything. So if you specified here these two parameters, and especially this one, it checks, does it have a value? Yes, then I'm now setting a value to that record. Then the next thing it tests is whether the path that it's stored here as a variable contains something. What does it need to contain? Well, it needs to contain the part of the find of the path to find. And so that's what you specified in here. And then we will use the other one here to do a replace by. So if it does find it, let's first say if it does not find it, it just says a little line in the log saying the part is not found in the path. It's not a problem, it will just go ahead with all the other stuff, but it will not try to reassign the file to another file, the record to another file. So if it does find it, I'm replacing it. I'm saying, okay, so this is the part that I wanted to find, this is the part I want to replace it by, and I want to do this in this variable, and this variable is then being overwritten. Notice that this is the name of the variable that I used in here, so that's an internal variable that you can reuse for your field settings. Why is this necessary? Because you can pick up here the value of the asset reference, but that's before it might have reassigned it to the high res. This one will give you either the original path or the high res. If the high res was there, it will contain the high res. If the high res was not there, it will just contain the original, which is then assumed to be the high res. So that's why I use this variable. If once I have that done, I'm creating a file object, because I want to test whether this file object really exists, and maybe it doesn't exist, and if it doesn't exist, of course, then we're not going to use it. So if this file, this high res, does not exist, I'm writing in the log there was no new file found. So, and I'm restoring the original value of the file path, because I want to have the correct version of the path where the file was moved to the vault from. Then if it did find the file, then it says, okay, so now I'm assigning this record, the hot record, to this new file to assign. I'm using the asset handling set and permission template, which is stored in memory, which is then what we set up in the parameters, and I'm going to update the record because the new file might have other information that Cumulus needs to store. And I'm writing to the log, record assigned to new file path, blah, blah, blah. And so it's once that is finished, then it is going to move the asset to the vault. Again, for this, it uses the asset handling set and never specify a vault folder name here. That is a very specific feature, can only be used in very specific cases. Here, I'm writing to the log saying, look, I moved the file and I stored the asset reference under asset reference so that I can put that in the log. Then I'm looking for the field to set after the process, record field to set after, which was specified here in this variable. If it's empty, then it will set nothing. If it's not empty, it will set the value to whatever you have specified in the record field to set after. The value to set after, sorry. And that's all. That's how the whole process works. It logs a lot of information, and it processes each record according to what you saw in the demo. I don't know if I can still... And so you can see for the first record it finds, which is called test no layout smiley. It doesn't find a layout because there's no layout in the folder, so it puts that in the log. Then it says it moved the file to the vault. The second one was test no high res, so it is in the layout folder. Sorry. But it didn't find a high res. It assumes it's the high res itself. And file moved to the vault. Then the third one is the one that it actually, which will be the normal procedure. It says, okay, it did find a layout one, and it says the record is assigned to the new file path, which is then the path without the layout in it, and it finally moves the file to the folder. So basically that's how this workflow works. Very straightforward and easy to modify according to your needs. Thank you for joining this training movie, and I hope to see you in the next one.